Hello and welcome to the Round Ball Australia podcast. My name is Lachie Avil, joining you back on a Monday morning again. We told you, this is our promise at the start of the year, Jacob. We're going to try and get as many of these little Monday morning episodes out as we can. We're back again because we have a bit of a big schedule this week as well, but we'll talk about that later. Jacob Stevens, hello to you. What a weekend it's been in the A-League. It really feels like the vibe is up at the moment. Pumping atmosphere at the Derby, pumping atmosphere at Newcastle, 12K fitted in there for their record-breaking win. There's a lot to be happy about.
Was good there. 100%. So it's feeling like the league's back a little bit, which is great because for a lot of the season, it's felt like, I don't know, I think in terms of that spectacle, it's kind of missed the mark slightly. I mean, the games have been great. It's really tight, obviously, so every game is super important. But in just terms of the kind of atmospheres that we've been getting and things like that, it kind of feels like it's not quite been there. But I think over the last few weeks, we've seen, these great crowds, people really getting around their teams. And now that everyone, I think, is kind of realising every team is in with a shot and every team is in with a chance of competing for something. To an extent, obviously, there are a few clubs where you'd say maybe their season's pretty well done, but for the most part, it's people are excited about it now because you never know what you're going to get every week. So it's great to see. It's feeling like the A-League of old again. Old as in last season, even.
Yeah, back in the positive. It's interesting you bring up the tightness of the league, and this is a conversation that is probably better suited for a different day with a lot more time that we can give it. But I think there's a fascinating discussion around whether tight in the league is actually better and a good thing. I think maybe towards this end and when we get closer to finals, it'll prove its worth because you're going to get a lot more teams who are still alive. So those crowds are still going to be there really, hunting finals by the end of the season. But goes other ways as well. Like a couple of weeks ago when Auckland was still top of the league and they were like 7 wins from 14 games, got a 50% win rate and they're top of the league. Yeah. Is that a thing? Like, is that a good thing? You want someone who only wins half their games to be top of the league? I don't know. There's a good conversation, but this week in particular it felt exceptional. Again, like that almost alternate use of PK League. Like it was just sick. It was just awesome. And of course the highlight was the Sydney Derby on Saturday night, and 33,000 people or so tucked into Sydney Football Stadium, just the second time that stadium has been used this season. And what a game it was. I mean, you have Ryan Fraser playing literally by the time he scored that goal, I think still just less than half an hour of football, or maybe just on half an hour of football played for the Wanderers. Yeah. And he scored a goal to win it and an opening goal in the Derby. He's already a cult hero coming across from the championship in England. And then the way that Sydney responded, not just from that early goal, but from the previous Derby and from all the tension and fire that was built up off that, it was just typical Derby greatness.
Yeah, and it's quite funny how poorly and quickly my take has aged about Fraser as well. When he signed, and I said, it's a great thing that it's he's come to the league because he's a quality player, but for everyone else's benefit, he's playing for the Wanderers, so he won't have much impact. And now he's got 2 goals in his first two appearances, and he looks class, right? Like he's been far and away the Wanderers' best player in the last couple of games, which is saying a lot considering, he came off the bench in that first one, so he's had limited minutes, but he's had a big impact. But Sydney, I think, kind of a return to form for them, and really in a week that it was desperately needed because it's been about 3 or 4 weeks now where they and Auckland have been dropping points together, so neither team has been able to really kind of establish themselves at the top of the table. But Sydney this week, obviously they didn't know that Auckland were going to lose against Perth, but they got the job done 4-1 in the Derby, and it was comprehensive. I mean, after that first goal was shipped, they just kind of locked in and performed really well. Some fantastic goals. I just thought that they were this is what we were saying they can be, right? All season long, we've been saying they have the potential to be this kind of team. And it just feels like in recent weeks, that's fallen away slightly. So, obviously a Derby match, you're going to get around it and it's going to fire you up a little bit more. But to actually see them return to that form that we did see earlier this season and that we've always said was there is great. Now that Auckland have lost as well, that's a massive benefit for them. And it kind of feels like maybe this is their opportunity now to kind of get back on the right track. I think maybe the last couple of weeks has kind of scared them perhaps into going, hang on, we can't be complacent now. We were talking before, the league's very, very tight. There's any number of teams that can be competing. I think there were 4 or 5 teams that could potentially have gone top by the end of this round, depending on how fixtures and things happen. So, it's absolutely crazy. So I think, for some of these teams now, it's going to be a real wake-up call of we can't just keep getting by. We've got to really start to stamp our authority on these matches, take these 3 points and win by a bunch of goals. And that's exactly what Sydney did. So, yeah, comprehensive performance from start to finish for them.
It does feel like a return to form. And another angle of that league being tight thing, you mentioned the idea of wanting to snap yourself back into that form. When you have so many teams in a season, with 26 games in it, and it goes up and down almost week to week. We talked last week about the streak that the Jets were on, and you compare that to the next best in the league, which was Adelaide with 2. And now they've lost that streak. There's no other team that has consecutive wins back to back at the moment. When there's such consistency of inconsistency going up and down, it's hard to have that specific turning point where a coach can bring your team into the changing rooms and really rev them up or point to this moment and say, we have to turn this around. We have to make this an example, because it's happening every week. You can't do that every week because it's going to lose its point. But the derby provides that opportunity because it's not like any other game. It does mean more. So you can use that management. I know Ufuk Talay was saying they got some of the players' mums as well in the locker room before the games and kind of use the family angle as well. Anthony Pentazopoulos, which I want to speak about again later, all of his comments and his words pre-derby and from the last one as well gives them an opportunity to rev themselves up. And it feels like that's the turning point. And the football's quality. And obviously, I feel like this is the arrival of Thiago Quintal now as well. I know there's a little deflections in the goals and stuff, but he was superb. He's a young player that's been shooting through their academy. He's actually become an established player now in this team. And this feels like the game where he's put himself centre stage and says, yep, this is me. I'm a Sydney boy. I grew up coming to the derbies. Now I've come in and I've shown and I've made a difference in one, scored a brace and won the game for us. This is him now. He's here.
100%. It was awesome to see, because I think that's kind of what Sydney have been lacking a lot this season, right? Is those real kind of those playmakers that are going to really make a difference. I mean, we've seen it with Victory when Juan Mata's on. Victory just dominate the game, right? And they win it. And okay, sure, they haven't had the results recently, but when he's on, he's on. And for Sydney, it's kind of felt like that's been the issue, is that kind of final third, which over the last couple of seasons hasn't been the issue for Sydney. So it's been a bit of a strange feeling there. So yeah, to have him getting going is tremendous. Victor Campuzano on the score sheet again as well is going to do him a world of confidence. And then the big one, the big name that really stood out, I think, to a lot of people was Cole Akon, who comes in 16 years old, I think he is. Joe Lolly's supposedly fit for this game. Is he going to start? Is he not? Talay backs the youngster to go out there, and just what a performance that was from him. 3 assists. I mean, it feels like every year we're just uncovering another name that maybe a few people have heard of, but that hasn't really kind of become household yet. But with a performance like that in the derby, I mean, Joe Lolly's fit again now, but I mean, surely you're going to reward this kid for that performance. That was an absolutely incredible performance from him. So it's a
good excuse just to say, Joe, have one extra week of rest.
One more week off. Yeah. You can relax for one more week. Who do they have next? I don't know. It's tough. It is tough. Yeah, Auckland. That might change the plans a little bit, but that was awesome to see. I thought he was tremendous. Obviously real difference maker. Got 3 assists. So it's great to see these young players continuing to come through at different clubs as well, and doing stuff like that in the biggest games of the season is just awesome.
And it's almost like the Brodie Burkett situation at Adelaide, right? You come in, score a hat-trick in your second game. Well, you have to reward that, don't you? You have to play him again. But then he's a young player, so next week, we'll talk about the Bulls a little bit later, but, obviously doesn't match the heights of a hat-trick. And then you say, okay, come back to the bench. You're still a young player. And I reckon that'll be a same kind of situation with Akon as well. It's like, well, you've had a pretty good performance, have another one. And then as soon as he drops down a little bit, well, then it's okay. We're going to bring Joe Lolly into
Joe Lolly. Yeah. That's the thing. When you've got the benefit of having quality on the bench already. Like, it's just, it makes that job so much easier when you're dealing with young players. And that's something that I think we've spoken about before, but, it's worth reiterating that it's great to see young players coming through, but it needs to be in the right environment, and there needs to be that right kind of system around them where if they are performing poorly, it's not the end of the world, and things aren't then hung on their performances. So I think Sydney have got it right with these kinds of situations recently, where they've done a really good job of it, that, a lot of other clubs in the league kind of do rely on their youngsters a lot of the time, and sometimes that sink or swim thing can help. But I think when you've got that comfort of if he doesn't have a great performance, you can bring Joe Lolly on, or vice versa, right? That's just a great treat for Sydney FC to have.
For sure, you got the depth to use. Now, this derby, I can't think of a specific game in mind, but it feels like it's been a little while since we've had this level of spice and fire to it, right? And we mentioned him after the last derby, especially because he played so well, but Pantazopoulos he's going to cop a lot of crap, and he already has after this game, and it's going to follow through into the week. He's literally been calling out by official Sydney socials and the whole blah 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 and the chat, and my point in all of this is to say that this level of animosity and the spectacle of the derby, and I even would go as far to say the amount of people that turned up, do not happen with him stoking the fire 2-3 months ago. And I think that's a credit to him. It's a credit to him as a wanderer, really trying to elevate this derby back to what we remember it to be. I think there was 33,000. I think legitimately it's possible that there could have been a 2 at the start of that, if not for the narrative that he's created. Okay, he came out in the first game, had a man of the match performance, absolutely killed it, and that feels great, right? You feel on top of the world, and you come here a little bit shaky. He had that weird kind of knee touch as well that I know the Sydney socials have been lapping up as well to lead to one of the goals. I think it was the first one, actually, the Campazano equaliser. And he's going to cop it. And unfortunately for him as an individual, that's football. You got to take it and you got to receive it as well. But credit, I still want to reiterate, even on the negative side of it, credit to him, because all the fire, all the scuffles, all the physicality, the rivalry of a derby and the atmosphere of a derby was amazing on Saturday night. And it really, really does not happen without him.
No, we need players like that, right? I think, a player that really, loves their club and, represents their club and, in these big games is the one that's able to kind of bring that fire and fight and just really spice it up. It's what's made these kind of fixtures over the years so good, is having those kinds of characters on the pitch. It's great to see the Wanderers having that fire in them again. Okay, it didn't work out for them, but I mean, how many years was it in that period when they were rebuilding their stadium, where it just kind of felt like they maybe didn't have that, right? And it kind of fizzled out a little bit, and they're starting to get it back now with these kinds of characters like Pantazopoulos. And it's again, it is that younger generation that I think that we're kind of seeing it with. I say younger generation, you know what I mean? The younger players in the league, where it's like they've kind of grown up with it, right? The league is their league in a way, right? They don't have memories of the NSL and things like that. It is purely they are an A-League person, an A-League player, an A-League fan. It's what they've grown up with, it's what they recognise and understand. So I think that's kind of the thing, is when you've grown up with that kind of stuff, you just feel it more, and we're seeing that a lot more too. So, it's tremendous. I mean, you love to hate these kinds of players, right? I mean, had the Wanderers won, it would have been insufferable from a Sydney FC point of view. But that's part and parcel of it, right? You would also love having a player like that on your team. So it's, everybody can be critical of it. It's something that, Stefan Moore copped a lot for in his career in the A-League, was always one of those players that's going to, start something during the game and stand up for his teammates, and he copped a lot of flack for it. But, if he's on your team, you love him for it. So it's, it's just a funny dichotomy there. But I think it's great. We love to see it. We've spoken, this season about, having good characters with coaches. It's even better to have it for the players, because they're the ones that people see, right? And they're the ones that, grab the attention. So more people like Pantazopoulos, please. That would be great.
Absolutely. I want Panta running into scuffles. I want Ben Garuccio saying that the Wanderers wasted too much energy talking before the game. They didn't
That was a great comment.
I want Sasha Oganovsky giving Vedran Janjetovic a spray for helping out a Wanderer with a cramp halfway through a game. Like that tension is what makes these derbies so entertaining. As long as it's all left on the field, that is football. That is football at its finest. Now, Jacob, I did try and secure a third voice for this podcast. Unfortunately, he's not able to make it, but he did send in a little voice note just to say hello. You're probably familiar with the name. He is a Wanderers supporter, Joe K Football. I was very interested to see what his take on the derby and especially the noise around it would have been. So this is his thoughts on the game.
This club, it makes me feel many things, which isn't a bad thing. I want to put that out there. I'll circle back to that at the end. But let's talk about Anthony Panterzopoulos in this derby. Obviously, talked a massive game going into this game. Talked a massive game in the first derby and backed it up. Second game at Allianz Stadium, obviously things didn't go to plan. I think this kind of can happen sometimes when players put themselves in his position as the main character of a derby. You can kind of end up trying to do a little bit too much. And as for Panterzopoulos, I mean, it was really just a string of the first 3 goals are completely off the back of actions he made. I'm not necessarily saying they're all his fault that they amounted to Sydney FC scoring goals, but just a bit of unlucky as well. I mean, the first one, bad touch. Second one, gets in the way of Lawrence Thomas. Third one, deflection past Thomas. It was just a string of very unfortunate events for the person who has put himself at the centre of this derby, which I love. And I love that he has the courage to be able to do that. But as for the result as a whole, and I think this is something that the rest of the league can relate to, but not during the regular season. Derbies truly feel like finals games. Every single one. The emotions are so high. And I am glad that I get to experience these emotions on a regular basis every season, whether or not we make finals. Because I think sometimes the league itself can feel watered down, but this game, there's a true hatred. And you can see it on the scuffles that you have during the games, the lead up, the build up, the punching after the game as well from social media teams to the other side. It's relentless. It hurts. It's killing me today as a Wanderers fan. But I am grateful that I can feel these emotions on a regular basis because swings and roundabouts. You know, we won the first one and I had a lot of fun after that game. Not so much today, but there'll be another derby and there'll be another time for the Wanderers to stand tall. And Panterzopoulos. Come on.
And Jacob, that just sums it up, right? Like the back and forth, you put your neck out on the line, you got to cop it when you lose as well. That is just the elements of what derby football is.
Yeah, it's one of those things of, you love to hate. You can't exist without that kind of a game for a football club. Like it feels like every club needs a game like that. You look forward to every year, regardless of how well either team is doing, and that you can have that back and forth, and banter, sometimes a bit more than banter, and it's so great. And I love that line of being grateful to experience these emotions.
Yeah,
I think we've all had moments like that as football fans, right, where you're like, God, what a moment. Like, I love football. and I think that's exactly what he's getting to. He's like, they lost badly, but it's still this great feeling of knowing what that occasion is, and understanding in the kind of this A-League sphere of how special a game like the Sydney Derby is, and being able to experience that and be a part of that, and understand how important that is. It's so great. And characters like Panterzopoulos that just kind of add to it. It's fantastic. It's he's surprised he wasn't more critical of the team than he was. He focused more on the atmosphere and how good it is from a fan's perspective. But no, I mean, it's always great, and we love those games of football. For me, it's the original rivalry. Like every year, I always talk it up about how great it is. Joe Kay even he was talking about how great it was after the one at Cooper Stadium only a couple of weeks ago. So it's these games of football that for football fans are just mean so much. And so even when you lose, it sucks and it hurts, but that's a good thing because it means that it matters. And that's what you get with the Sydney Derby. So it's great to see, these big crowds, these big occasions, big characters, kind of trying to stir things up, and then just good games of football as well. So yeah.
Absolutely. Shout out football. Thanks, Joe, as well. We appreciate you. We'll get you on one day. Guarantee it. Now, the other headline story for the week, Jacob, is that we have a new team at the top of the table. And I think this is really the feel-good story of the year. And
100%.
again, this theme of the tight year, I reckon there's a lot of clubs in here, if they manage to go through and they win the grand final, it's almost in danger of, well, it's you got lucky towards the end of the season, or, you know, you haven't had a very consistent season, so it's just that last month, or it's just another grand final if it's one of those teams that's won a few. But the Newcastle Jets, if they continue to go on the trajectory they're on, they're the Australia Cup champions. They're currently sitting top of the A-League men's competition and will surely challenge for 2 pieces of A-League silverware. They are on the cusp of a club-defining season, which I think is so entertaining. They absolutely tore the Brisbane Roar apart on Saturday afternoon. It was such a fun game to watch. The way they connect in the final third, the way they're brave, they don't wait for the perfect situations. They just go with what they've got. They have brilliant attacking players, Clayton Taylor, Lachie Rose, Eli Adams is just a handful of them. They are such a fun team to watch, and they're winning games of football, which of course makes it better.
Yeah, it's been crazy to watch them, and you know, we were talking about, you know, maybe it's that kind of the Australia Cup, and then you underperform in the league, and you know they're not finding consistency, and now they've
and they did initially, right?
Yeah, and now they've won 5 in a row, and you know they've scored 10 more goals than the next team, which is Adelaide and Wellington have 24. Newcastle have scored 34. That is a crazy stat to have. You know, their defensive record isn't the worst in the league, despite what some people have, you know, kind of said about them.
It's close.
It's close, but they've tidied themselves up in recent weeks, which is why they've gone on the run that they've gone. So, you know, it's been epic to watch, and they are one of those teams that, you know, they've been around since the inception of the league, and they've had that one really good season. And you know it kind of ended in heartbreak against the Victory in the grand final, and now it's like they've got this
they had
opportunity.
A championship before that, but yeah,
they did have that's true actually, yeah, in the early years, hey. But you know this kind of success has been so rare for them throughout the history of the club that the opportunity to win a treble is right there for them. Like you said, if they can just keep this consistency in a league that is so tight. And I think that is the beauty of it, right? Yes, people will discredit it and go, oh, but the league was weak that year, blah, 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 blah. You hear that regardless of who wins, right? Fans of other teams are going to say that to try and discredit it. Exactly. And I think the fact that the league has been so tight has allowed teams like the Jets to actually seize this opportunity, right? Like Leicester did in the Premier League in 2016, for instance, right? Kind of an off year for some of the bigger clubs. So it allows somebody to actually go, we're going to play good football, win games, and we're going to be a shot to win the title. And, you know, it'll shock everybody, but we know that we've done a good job. Don't listen to what everyone's saying about you, right? Like, oh, it's a weak league. Jets have won 5 in a row. They're outscoring everybody. Nobody knows what to do against them. Like, it's yes, okay, maybe a few teams have been a bit down this year on where everyone would anticipate that they would be and things like that. But I don't think that discredits from, you know, what the Jets have been doing recently, which has been just absolutely dominating games of football, scoring a bunch of goals, being really fun. I mean, you just look at the way they attack is so dynamic and fluid. They've got such talented players, Eli Adams, Clayton Taylor. Lachie Rose has been tremendous recently as well, and he's currently tied for the league golden boot. Who would have predicted that coming into the season, right? So it's you know, everything just seems to be going right for them at the moment. Obviously, a lot of credit goes to Mark Milligan as well for kind of unlocking that in this team, but it's just... It's just like the perfect kind of, you know, brewing a storm in a bottle kind of thing, where it's just the right time, the right kind of team to capitalize on what's been an absolute mess of a league so far, and just go, we're going to put a run of form together, and that's going to put us above everybody else, and from there we can cruise. Yeah, all credit to them because they've been tremendous.
Just want to reiterate, there is no other club that has back-to-back wins in their last 2 games. No other streaks alive in the A-League men's competition. And then the Newcastle Jets go and win 5 games in a row. That is the first time that has ever happened in the history of the men's team in the A-League period, winning 5 games of A-League football in a row. It is seriously, seriously superb. I love what Mark Milligan's doing. And, you know, the fact that they did have that dip as well at the start of the season, they come through, they win the Australia Cup. It wasn't the strongest run as well in terms of opposition face. So that question mark was always there. And then they came in to the regularity of the league, and they did struggle early on. And people exposed their clear weakness, which was those kind of turnovers in the high area of the field for the opponent. That is, if the opponents could put a good press together, then they would be able to score enough goals to outdo the Newcastle Jets. But I think particularly in this game against Brisbane, they show that they were actually able to play through that a little bit more and that they've papered over those cracks a little bit, which is credit to Millsy, obviously, and the rest of his coaching staff. And they've worked on their weaknesses. And we said this at the start of the year, that ceiling has always been so high if they could figure that stuff out. And they've done that. And the football stuff is tidied. And I wasn't sure if we were going to use the T word at the start of February, but, why not dream? Millsy was asked the question about what the team can achieve. And of course, the coach answers as the coach does. It would be silly to put a ceiling on this team, right? But for these fans, especially the ownership saga that lasted 3 years and the other clubs propping them up and finally getting the Maverick Sports Group to come in and save them. And then they brought in Millsy and relied on local talent. They have not overspent in terms of bringing in other players. A lot of them are Novocastrians themselves, local players, young players. Eli Adams is the best striker of a football, probably bar Irankunda that I've seen in the last 5 years.
The way he hits it. I mean, that free kick he had that I think it hit the crossbar.
Oh, that was amazing.
That was destined to go in the top corner the whole way there. It was such an incredible hit.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they hit a ball that hard and somehow get it towards the target in general. It's astounding. It's incredible. And look, they had that championship year. They've had the cup now, but like you look back in 20 years, and this kind of goes to my point, if Sydney win another one, it's not going to go close to 16, 17. If City get it done, then it's back to back and maybe they're in Asia. So that's kind of cool. But like victory, it's not Archie scoring 5 at Etihad, like there are levels to this, and the potential for what Newcastle can achieve is not just a good season, but building forwards. They're going to go into Asia already in the ACL too. Of course, if they win the Premiership in the A-League, it'll be the Asian Champions League Elite instead. They have a chance to string together a couple of seasons that is genuinely, in 20, 30 years' time, looking back, club defining.
As long as they avoid the problem that a few championship clubs have made in the past of then just mass exodus of players, which happens, right? Because players have a really, really good season, a really strong season, they get an opportunity, they leave. That's going to happen, but it's also, it's on the club to recognize, like you said, the opportunity that is here to kind of create almost an era, right, for the next couple of years, the next couple of seasons, and say this is the Newcastle Jets time, and this is our opportunity to really establish ourselves as one of the best clubs in the country, and to do that you have to kind of be a little bit hardball, and sometimes that means not letting players leave, sticking around. I think they've, like you said, they've done a great job relying on local talent, which is going to help them. It's not like they've gone and signed a bunch of players who are then going to move on elsewhere. You might be able to keep a few of them around for a while, but there is always that worry, right? And I think that's always at the back of the minds of every single fan of every club in this league, is that, if they have a good season, they're gone, right? And you've seen it with me with Panic Ikianis with Adelaide United and the rumors about him, and stuff like that. It's like, it's because it's true, right? You have a good season, and Australia, we're always talking about, is a development opportunity for a lot of players to move on and go elsewhere and continue to grow and become better, and that is the problem. But I think if they can avoid falling into that trap, which a few clubs have done over the years, then you're spot on. This is a massive opportunity for them to really define the next couple of years for their club, and just kind of, I suppose, etch a new chapter in the history of the Newcastle Jets, and kind of almost start fresh, right? Like, it's not starting fresh, it's the same club, it's the same fans, it's the same identity, but it does kind of, you're right, the whole ownership debacle and kind of being on life support for a while and things like that. This is their second chance at life in a way, and they're taking it with both hands. So this is an awesome opportunity for them.
100%. Are we worried about the Brisbane Roar, Jacob? They only lost one of their first, I think, 8 games. I have it here. So that start put them straight up towards, premiership contention really early on. They've now after the last 2 losses. Of course, this one to the Jets as well, dropped out of the top 6 for the first time since maybe round 2 or 3, depending on how those points worked out. I'm not entirely sure. There are mitigating circumstances. In some respect, they had the big fixture congestion, which hurt them. Obviously, Michael Valkanis, and our condolences to his family with his mother passing away. He missed a game as well. I'm sure that would have been difficult to deal with as a squad as well. But they're outside the 6. That early, boost that they got from that run at the start of the season has faded away. And even in a season as tight as it is, you can't afford to be stringing too many losses together in a row. You have to have those points in and between if you want to stay in touch.
Yeah, they've almost done a reverse Newcastle, right? Where they started strong and are now starting to fall away, whereas Newcastle maybe didn't start off so strong and are now starting to build up that form. So, yeah, I'm not overly worried. I think, they benefit from the circumstance of the league being so tight, where, things like this, you have your rough patches of form. The good news is that, everyone's so tight that, yes, you've lost a bunch of places, but realistically, you're still well in the fight, right? It could be a lot worse for you. So, it sucks. I think the problem that I'm seeing with them is it feels like they're just not playing. They're not playing in the same kind of fashion that they were earlier this season. They're still, really strong and physical and winning their duels and things like that. But I'm not quite sure what it is. It feels like there's something in the middle of the park that's just gone missing in recent weeks, and they've really struggled to kind of have those opportunities to capitalize on opposition mistakes, to create chances, really good chances. I mean, a lot of the goals that they've scored, the chances they've created have been kind of happenstance, or they've been, just a player taking a shot and something happening and stuff like that. It feels like they've lost a little bit of that creative edge, which helps them then also control the tempo of the game, right? Because if they're creating chances, they stay on the ball more, they're the bigger threat. So that's kind of my issue with them, is it feels like maybe something's just not clicking at the moment for them in the middle of the park. That transition between defense and attack isn't quite there. It's not like they are awful, right? I mean, this game against the Jets were just so good. Like, there's only so much you can do when a team is playing like that. But I mean, you look back last week against Adelaide, I thought actually they probably would have felt hard done by to have not gotten at least a draw, probably even the win from that game, right? So it's not like they're playing terrible football. There's just a couple of little things missing that they had at the start of the season that just haven't quite been there in recent weeks. And I don't know exactly what the root cause might be, but it just feels like there's that kind of creativity in there, that ability to create those big chances that's just lacking a little bit for them at the moment.
Yeah, I wonder as well how little those things are. Like my one suggestion I'd make about the Raw is actually the idea of, has actually too much changed? Really? Like,
quite possibly.
Because they never were like a big creators in terms of like quantity at the very least.
Yeah.
Quantity of chances and big opportunities in front of goal. And those margins were always fine. And it felt like at the time that the momentum of the team, the direction of the club and the vision and the mentality of the group was the things that was carrying them through in those kind of like 1-0, 2-1 really tight games. And for whatever reason, football is a variance game as well. If a couple of things go wrong with different matches, then all of a sudden you have those 2, 3, 4 losses in the last 5 like Brisbane do now. So has a lot changed? I don't know. Maybe it's just a team that they're going to go on their runs. They're going to get wins in a row. They're going to get losses in a row. And especially with this ceiling that they do have in terms of their togetherness as a team, maybe when you get towards finals and your back is against the wall and you do have nowhere to hide in terms of games remaining, maybe that's a scenario that really energizes them as well. So they do have that potential to come back. But I would also say, they're one of the teams at the moment that are 16 games played. I think it's them.
That's true, actually, yeah.
Bulls and City as well. So all of a sudden, after next week, they'll be in single digits in terms of games remaining. So that just puts that little bit of pressure of, yes, the league is so even. Yes, we're going to be, things would have to really, really spiral to not be in touch with the top 6 with 2 or 3 games to play. But when that games remaining counter continues to tick down, we're almost getting into that feeling of, okay, these missed opportunities are really going to hurt us. So things are just going to mean that little bit more in the coming weeks as we get into March as well, especially. Now that the pressure is really going to be on then. So they don't. I don't think it's emergency stations, as you say, that like it's only goal difference that they're outside the 6 on. But the opportunities, as much as this whole season, and we keep saying it, it's been so tight. Every single team in the league has 3 or 4 games that they go, oh man, we should have won that. We should have got those extra points there. You're running out of next opportunities.
And I think that's the thing, a lot of clubs will look back on this season as well and go, was this a missed opportunity for us to win some silverware? It's a few clubs that maybe aren't in that phase of, our silverware winning window is open, right? Maybe it's still, you're kind of in that rebuilding or development phase or whatever to getting to that point. But you can look at this season and go, actually, we were a shot of doing it if we just changed 1 or 2 things or did one thing differently or got points in that game and, things like that. So yeah, you're right. You can't keep dropping points. But yeah, I don't think it's panic stations. I mean, they've got the Mariners next who, they got a tidy win over the Victory, but they've not exactly been lights out this season. So, there's a chance to kind of right the ship again there. So yeah, it's not panic stations yet. And there's been, like you said, a lot of circumstances, kind of just around the team recently that probably would have played an impact as well. So yeah, we'll just see. We'll wait and see. I still think they're a quality football side. I just don't think they've shown it recently.
All right, well, let's go to the Mariners then. A 1-0 victory just a couple of hours ago as we're recording, Jacob. A very disrupted match as well.
Yeah.
I wasn't watching 100% early on in the game, and I was confused as I was seeing like notifications pop up, and I thought they kicked off at 5 o'clock. Why is it halftime at like 6:30 or something like that? Ridiculous. They went off for lightning, and then they came back, played a few minutes, and then they had a full halftime break. It was very strange, but the end result is the Mariners, a goal from new signing Ali Orgler, one of many to come through from Sydney Olympic in this window, is the difference. They go down to 10 men. I think a very clear red card to Nathan Paul, who I think around the 55th minute, so left them over half an hour with 10 men. They defended valiantly, but Victory should have had the chances, and did have the chances, and they should have put them away. I don't think Charles Nduka on debut endeared himself too well, pretty much spooning one wide from a couple of feet out. Another, look, I said last week on our preview for this round, the worst case scenario would be Victory off all this momentum that they gained in the Big Blue, go and throw it away at the Central Coast. And that's exactly what they've done. You have no faith at all, if you're a Victory supporter, that this team can do anything consistent for the rest of the season now.
Yeah, but Lachie, we mustn't forget that it's been raining. So it's
it's been raining. It's been raining hard.
Yeah. But no, it was a disappointing performance from the Victory, and definitely should have come away with at the very least a point. I mean, you're playing against a 10-man Mariners team for 35 minutes. You've got to put one of those chances away. I mean, credit to the Mariners for holding on, but it just that should have been victories. But it kind of follows the trend we've seen this season, though, of teams that take the lead and then get a player sent off actually find themselves in a pretty decent scenario, because we have not really, I don't think we have seen this season a team overturn that, right? I think if they're behind and the opposition get a player sent off, I can't remember one.
Not more than once or twice. There's been 4 or 5 examples the other way, this way.
Yeah. So it's definitely in favour of the teams getting players sent off. But yeah, they should have done a lot more, especially for a team like the Victory. They are not going to settle for not making finals. They are a team that is always in compete mode. And yeah, this kind of a loss. I mean, yeah, again, credit to the Mariners, and the goal was outstanding. It was a fantastic hit. We've seen some absolute bangers over the last couple of weeks, mostly from the Jets, to be honest. But this one was up there. And then there were a couple from Jaden Kaczarski as well in the Perth game, which were tremendous, which we'll get onto. But yeah, no, the Mariners will be very, very happy. They're off the bottom of the table. The Wanderers are back down there now, but Victory will be extremely disappointed with that, because that was just not a good enough performance, to be perfectly honest. We're talking about opportunities just before, to get points and things like that, and you're looking at this and you're going, that was a big opportunity to get points, and it just didn't happen. If you say to Victory, you're going to be playing against the Wanderers, who have had a player sent off, and you're going to have 35 minutes against 10 men, they are expecting to get all 3 points from that. So the fact that they didn't is a massive disappointment for them. And it's just, it's disappointing as well in the context of, like you said, throwing away all the momentum from the Big Blue. It just, I don't know. Their season just can't seem to really find its feet at the moment, the Victory.
Yep, they're on struggle street for sure. I mentioned that the chance to Nduka. There was Virgil also had one in the net, which was a good header to be fair, but just strayed slightly offside. And Nish had a couple of chances as well. They need to find some way to get some form of consistency.
Put the ball in the back of the net. That's
and it's been the same question, hasn't it?
Yeah. And it's such a disappointment because there's so many great creative players out there. And Juan Mata, like I said earlier, has been so fantastic for them this season. And yet there's nobody putting the ball in the back of the net for the victory. And that is the problem. And that will continue to be the problem.
Juan got a bit of cramp, I think, like right on the 93rd minute, just before the end of the game. And I didn't quite see exactly what happened. And all of a sudden it was like, no, Juan, please don't be injured. Please don't be injured. Like, stay still. Just stand there for the last 60 seconds.
Don't actually play the last minute of the game.
Just stand there. We don't need you getting injured. But the Central Coast Mariners, the win is massive for them. Like, from a mentality point of view, we talked about this window being a bit of a fresh start. And obviously all of this ownership stuff is going to go in the background, which all the news in that regard sounds positive. We talked about that last week. Steve Rosic had a few lines about, several interested parties. But getting a win, undefeated in their last 3 now, including draws against the Bulls and Auckland as well, which was a
3 fantastic results. Like, you offer any team a win and 2 draws against, Victory, Auckland, and MacArthur. You go, yeah, that's pretty solid. We'll take that. So.
100%. So undefeated in those 3, and they climb off the bottom of the table as well. 5 points outside of finals. That is all it is. Right, which is remarkable.
They're also in this position as well of being able to play the spoiler. Like, for a lot of clubs this season, like I said, they're going to see this as an opportunity to try and win some silverware in what's a kind of topsy-turvy league. And the Mariners are perfectly positioned to kind of still be underrated, I think, by a lot of teams and a lot of people, and be kind of that banana peel for a lot of teams, right? Where like I said, Victory would expect to get 3 points against the Mariners and they slip up and they lose. I think they're going to have more and more of those opportunities moving forwards. Obviously, they will be pushing for finals, like you said, only 5 points off it, but they will still, I think, have that kind of that stigma about them in a way where it's like, it's just the Mariners will get the job done, and then they can come in and grab those points and help themselves out as well. So yeah, they find themselves in an interesting position, and I think it's great. Like, they've really come around since Warren Moon, his appointment was made permanent, right? He's been like, the team has looked completely different, and it came off the back of that 4-0 win against Adelaide. We're a perfect example of what I'm saying, of kind of a team underrating them and them going out there and getting a result. So yeah, I think they're in a nice little position for themselves. So
plenty of the season left to go. They have 15 games played, so 11 games left for the Mariners. Plenty of time to do something there. And doesn't Australia love an underdog as well? And the underdog that it feels like a lot of people are getting around most. I don't know if we're considering Newcastle underdogs anymore. I think they're right up there in terms of genuine challenges. Yeah, they're the big boys. Someone's got to take them down. But the Perth Glory, Jacob, their renaissance under Adam Griffiths continues to impress. And Jaden Kaczarski, the man who's was signed for 3 clubs in a matter of weeks, does it again, a brace and an absolute banger in the 90th minute. The late slot in Perth always delivers. What a goal. What a win. This Perth Glory side is just another one of those teams that's so exciting to watch, because you never know what's going to happen, and they can play some really good, really entertaining football at times. Jaden bloody Kaczarski.
Yeah, just incredible. I mean, the first goal was a great run in behind, found it perfectly, and it wasn't an easy finish, but he finished well. And then that second goal was all class, and I think it kind of represents Perth Glory this season, to be honest, where it's those little moments, and they've been so big for them as well, and so big for just in general, like the way everybody's received it has been awesome as well. So no, they're like you said, I like that use of the term renaissance. I think is great, because it's spot on. I don't think they're a perfect finished product yet. Obviously they're far from that, but they're really starting to turn things around and kind of become a little bit of a threat again. And they're only 2 points off of the 6 as Correct, it stands, with a game in hand on a few of those teams up there as well. So it's like they're doing some good things. I mean, my one gripe with them is they need to find a way to turn some of these draws into losses into draws, sorry, so that they're kind of taking something away from a few games where they maybe don't play so well. But for the most part, I mean, when they're on it, they're really entertaining to watch. And yeah, I mean, to spoil Auckland again, Auckland are just, we were talking about rough patches. They are going through one hell of a rough patch at the moment. What is this? How many weeks in a row now have they just been like kind of average and dropping points? And it's been going on and on. And them and Sydney have kind of been trading it, right? When one drops points, the others do as well. So nothing really changes. But this week it changed, and because everybody else has closed up as they're all dropping points, all of a sudden they drop down. They're in third spot now. So it's just they've really kind of capitulated recently. And Perth are just the most recent team to get that result, but it was that individual brilliance from Kaczarski that really just put them over the edge. And I think it was great. It rewards what's been solid support from the Perth locals this season as well. They've had good crowd numbers out. They had another good attendance, 7,900 or something, I think, out of this one, which was great to see. And the scenes after that late winner as well were incredible. So yeah, there's a lot to like about Perth, and I think a lot to worry about for Auckland as well.
Yeah, vibes are great. Taggart's back and fit. Kaczarski scoring goals. Tom Lawrence still looks like a great player. Brian Kaltak's back to his old self. You've got the success story in goals as well with Sutton. So the vibes are so strong. And again, like Auckland dropping points. The Jets and Sydney were the only two teams in the top 6 to win games this week. The other two were Glory and the Mariners. What's your luck? So dropping out not only off the top, but down to third, and Sydney are only 14 games played. So they have a game in hand on both Auckland and the Jets. So Auckland are legitimately dropping off the pace now, which is a little bit of a worry for Steve Corica.
Oh, 100%. And they've just not been good enough, plain and simple. I mean, they kind of have just been going through the motions. There's nothing that stood out about them. The performance against City was incredibly lackluster. If it wasn't for, again, a moment of kind of just individual play, they wouldn't have even scored a goal in that one. Then, they draw with the Mariners at home as well, and it was just sloppy defending for that Ollie Laval equaliser in the 90th minute. And then here against Perth, they just kind of don't show up. I mean, there's still some good things from, like, Jesse Randall, I think, is having a tremendous season. Lachie Brooks had a great season as well. Like, there are pieces that are doing really well, but it's just not coming together for them all together at once. If it's just not sustainable to play like that, and that's what they've been facing these last couple of weeks, where if they're kind of a little bit off, then that's, the other team has a massive opportunity, because they're not good enough across the park this season to be able to kind of have moments where they look a bit shaky and kind of get through it, which they did last season really well, right? We talked about how they were able to grind out results and things like that when maybe they weren't performing at their best. I think we're kind of seeing almost the opposite this season, where they're not at their best and they're not able to grind out results, and they're losing 2-1 to Perth, they're losing 2-1 to City, they're drawing 2-2 with the Mariners. Like, it's just like they don't quite have that same mentality almost, which is a bit strange, because you feel like they would. A lot of the core is still there. They've got really exciting youngsters coming through. They're getting great support at home. It's not quite there for them. And, like you said, it was caused them to fall right off the pace of those other teams in the top 3. And that should hopefully be a wake-up call for them, especially considering their next game is against Sydney. So, you want to stop Sydney, escaping. You have that opportunity now next week to go and do exactly that. You get that win over Sydney, kind of restore parity in a way, and can kind of reset things in but if you don't get that result, then, the last 3 weeks with your kind of underwhelming performances are going to really bite you.
It's interesting. I want to pick out one thing you said in there, is that Auckland going through the motions. And in some way, that was the massive compliment of them last season, is that when the rest of the season, apart from little spells of Adelaide and little spells of Western United, when everyone else was kind of doing the win-loss thing like we're seeing this season, Auckland were the one team that were consistent and going through the motions and being defensively solid and, most of the time scoring a goal or two to get them wins in games of football and very rarely losing. That consistency was a strength of theirs, whereas it maybe, doing nothing particularly special was meaning that they were just doing their job and doing exactly what they needed to. But maybe, the goalkeeper situation, we saw Ollie Sale come in, bringing Michael Vowd out of the team. Obviously, losing Alex Paulson was always going to be an issue. We've seen some defensive injuries. Sakai's been in and out of the team. Girdwood Wright came on really early in this one. I forget the specific defender who got injured as well, but they've had those personnel issues. You got the likes of a Lachie Brook and a Jesse Randall up forward who are carrying a lot of the burden in terms of scoring goals. Cosgrove was on a little bit earlier in the season. He's faded away. Galagos and Mai in midfield and attack as well. Maybe not just doing quite what they were doing last season. All it takes is that slight little drop of standards, and all of a sudden that inconsistency is hitting them. And maybe you do think you need something special. And that kind of goes back to the conversation we're having about Sydney. When it is up and down like that, it's hard to pick your moment to say, okay, line drawn, this is the reset point. Let's do all those things we were doing before and let's move forward. But they had 2 Kiwi derbies really early in the season, and then it's been a big gap. And okay, which game do we pick? Maybe it's this weekend against Sydney. Maybe this is exactly the game that you need to say, all right, let's stop mucking about. We've got probably the team, in addition with the Jets now, they're going to be really hard challenges for the title. We've got them at home in front of our supporters. This is the line in the sand. You better put in a good shift. Otherwise, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. This is really a make or break game for them. And for Sydney as well. I mean, if they win this one, they're breaking free. And, this is a massive opportunity for them as well to... But no, you're right. I think this is a moment for both clubs, for Auckland in particular. And I want to go back to this point about, going through the motions as well. I think the difference this season is kind of twofold. Is number one, that last season they were able to kind of build a gap and then just be able to go through because everyone else was going crazy, right? Whereas this season, Sydney have been on their tail from the get-go. They have been right up there, and now the Jets are starting to push
the Jets
on
have
through
appeared.
as well. Yeah, and it's like they've constantly had a challenger at the top spot this season, right? They've not been able to kind of just build a little bit of a gap and then be able to relax and just play a little bit more comfortably. They've been having to fight a lot more this season, which they haven't done. They're still in that mindset of, I think, last season of, going through the motions and thinking they can just do things and they'll get the result. Whereas that's not been the case this season because there's more teams fighting. Every team is playing for something this season, so that the stakes are just higher and they're struggling a lot more with just doing things the way they did it last season. So I think something needs to change. And like you said, this game is a huge opportunity for that. It's not what should we call this game? It's not the big blue, but both teams are blue. So the medium blue,
the Trans Tasman blue.
So there's something.
I'm assuming the Trans Tasman is blue. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
The Tasman Sea.
Yeah. The sea. Yeah.
The Tasman blue.
The Tasman blue. That's not going to
Alex, free of charge. No, I don't think it is either. All right. Last couple of games of the round, 2 draws, 2-2 between Wellington and Melbourne City, and then a 1-1 draw between Adelaide and Macarthur. Maybe we both have a little stint at one of each, Jacob. I'll take the City-Wellington game. And I cannot believe that Wellington threw this game away.
Yeah.
They absolutely threw 3 points. They had it in their hand and they threw it straight in the bin. A brace early on from Eze, who continues to go from strength to strength.
Like, he's come out of nowhere and has just been the best striker this season. Like, it's just,
absolutely.
It feels like you can always back, expect him to bag a goal, because he's been one of the few consistent strikers this season. It's not like his goals have come in big bunches, like a few players have scored a hat-trick or whatever, and that's pushed him right up the rankings. He's just been consistently scoring goals. And it's like he's almost a level above some of the defenders he's playing against, right? Physically, he's a lot stronger than a lot of players. He's a lot quicker than a lot of players. The ability to strike the ball is incredible. He can hit it from tight angles. He hits it hard. He can finish well. Like, he's a really well-rounded striker. I think Wellington have found a quality player there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know some people will have question marks about the first goal in terms of maybe the foul and the push-up. For me, I think it's just a strong dual one against Ukraine. That's my gut instinct, and you got Beach kind of accidentally clashing into them as well, and then he rounds to make it one. And But you're right, he's been a great find. And I remember being really skeptical about him early on because I was there at the ground for his first competitive start in the Australia Cup where they lost to Heidelberg in the quarterfinals. And he full on spat the dummy. Like he came off the bench late on. The standard of football they were playing was not great. Wellington were losing the game quite heavily by that point. And whenever I went to shake hands and talk to people after the game in the middle of the pitch, he just walked straight down the tunnel. He was having none of it. And I remember seeing that and going, oh, that's a little bit strange, right? Like I know you're an athlete and you're a pro athlete. You need to care about these things a lot, and they do. But it's your first competitive game. But fair dues, he's proved me wrong for sure, and he's come out and been a real strength for the side. And that should have been it. It should have been 2-0, wrap it up. 2 errors. To be fair, the first one is maybe a little bit harsh to say an error, but you have that kind of comical bounce between Kelly Heald and Eunice that kind of spits out, which is a hell of a ball. Oh, I'm forgetting who's passed it now. Mehmeti, scored the equaliser as well, but played that ball with the outside of his foot through to Eunice as well. That was pretty special, but leaving it to chance like that goes in, and then the second is just a clear error, and then missing the penalty late on. Just Sheafy must have been apoplectic in the changing room post match because they did not deserve. Maybe by the second half performance they did deserve it, right? I know I'm particular about that word. They shouldn't have
found themselves in that position, though. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, there is no planet where they should have lost that game. And I remember I was having conversations with people during this game and about Melbourne City. Half time, it's like, oh, what is happening to this Melbourne City team? You've got in all the signings. Obviously, you have to give them a little bit of time to blend in. Like Ryan Teague does not look like the player he was for Melbourne Victory last season. You're going to get Daniel Azadi once he regains a little bit of fitness and so forth. But this Melbourne City team, I don't know how much to put it on Aurelio Vidmar because I think his management, outside of the 90 minutes of football, I think his management of the team and the group, especially in Asia as well, has been exceptional. I wonder how much the limits of the City football system actually allow you to shake it up again. If you just go from week to week doing similar things, where is that cutoff point? When is the moment to change things up? How much flexibility does he actually have to change around with the system? I know he's played a little bit of a double pivot in Asia sometimes, but we haven't seen that a lot in the A-League. So I wonder what his restrictions are, and they just need a shot of adrenaline somewhere. Obviously, Andreas Kuhn, Kanamori, his injury, he's been struggling. He was subbed on and off in this match as well, so who knows what the latest is on him. They're missing personnel here and there, but again, they had this question about them last year, and the kids came on and absolutely killed it.
We're able to find a way, yeah.
And their second line of defence in terms of the players coming off the bench this year, after this window at least, is better than what they had last year, Jacob. Yet they're still finding these results. And again, they get a point out of this one, a very lucky one because of Wellington's second half performance, but they shouldn't have got anything from this match, and that would have dropped them outside the 6 as well.
No, yeah, it's crazy because there's a lot of excitement around them after the transfer window they've had, where it feels like they've made a number of really, really high quality signings. Harrison Delbridge as well, who should be one of the best centre backs in the league theoretically. It's just they've just not found it, and they've not found ways to win games, and they've not had that kind of spark that they had in those kind of dark moments last season where they were injury riddled, and it was like, well, we don't have a striker on the books right now because everyone's injured, and who's going to do it? And they were able to find a way, and somebody would find a goal and they'd get that 1-0 and they'd be happy. I think it is harsh to put it all on Vidmar. I do agree that he's not been as flexible in the league as he has been in Asia with his kind of tactics and setup and stuff. And maybe that's something that's going to change moving forwards is, maybe he's going to go, actually, maybe we need to try something different in the midfield, or we need to try something different here or there and just see what works. He was obviously very reliant on Kai Truan for a while too. And now that he's gone, perhaps that opens up that opportunity to try something different and be a bit more flexible. Who knows? We'll probably see that in the coming weeks if he's going to do anything there. But it's a combination of things. I think it's a combination of kind of just a static system that hasn't changed much over the last season. It's, injuries, it's players perhaps not quite living up to expectations, especially the recent signings. So, yeah, I mean, it's a number of things that aren't quite right for them. But then you also go, well, look how well they're doing in Asia. Obviously, they're yet to resume competition for that. Do you know when they go back to playing? In a couple of weeks?
Very shortly.
And, I think there's there's an expectation that they could do quite well in that competition. So, maybe that's weighing on their mind as well in terms of how much they're giving towards that. But yeah, it's just, I think it's the culmination of a few things, and they're kind of struggling a little bit at the moment in the league. So yeah, it's disappointing. Their second half was a lot stronger. There was an absolute mess in that first half, but yeah, they've got some thinking to do, and some kind of strategizing, I think, in terms of how they're going to try and shake things up. And it's an interesting point you raise about, are the City Group the kind of place where you can have that flexibility, and go, right, we're going to kind of almost refresh ourselves now, we're halfway through the season, and try something different. Who knows? But I think it can't hurt them too much, considering how they've played recently and the results they've had.
And you're right to bring up Kai Truan, because as good as the window has been, and I think the rumor was at least a 7-figure deal for him to go to New York City as well. So $1 million in the pocket is a good thing for the balance sheet. But he is such an important player. And shout out Daniel McBrien. I know he's been high and true, and he's the first place I heard this stat. But even before the weekend, but now it's maybe even worse. I think they've had like 3 or 4 games, Melbourne City, this season without Kai Truan, and they've now conceded 12 goals. And their total goals conceded is 20. So that's 8 in like the 12 games or something that he has played. And then 12 goals conceded in the 4 games, I think it is, that he hasn't played this season. So that is damning. Whether Ryan Teague can come in and replace him, if we're seeing the Ryan Teague of mid to late last season, then the answer is maybe yes. He obviously plays a little bit more of a forward role in a double pivot with Valadon, right? But Kai Truan is massive. So in all those entries that they've had, are they going to be able to replace him and carry through? It's a massive, massive question. I think it's the biggest question that City have throughout the remainder of this season, especially in the A-League as well. Final game, Jacob, Adelaide 1, MacArthur 1. Take us through it.
Well, there wasn't much to it, to be honest. It was 37 degrees, only 7,000 in attendance, which is a lot down for Adelaide this season. And it just kind of was a game of football. It was two teams that, had they won, had the opportunity to go top of the table. And, neither of them had that edge that was able to get them over the line. Good passages of play from both teams. Chris Economides scoring with his first touch of the ball was quite funny to see. Literally comes on, scores. Okay, cool. Yeah, perfect, job done. Johnny Yole got another goal as well. He's had a tremendous season, but it felt like both teams, I think the heat definitely played a factor in it. We've said this for years and years and years and years now, that games in these kinds of temperatures just don't deliver, right? There's just nothing. I remember writing about it last season after, I think it was an Adelaide-Brisbane game, and Bart Friens was saying that, there's actually nothing you can do to prepare for it, right? All you can do is just in the moment drink, stay hydrated, and hope you're able to kind of get through the 90 minutes. It's when players are literally just trying to survive for 90 minutes, you're not going to get a great game of football, and that's exactly what we saw here. It wasn't a tremendous game of football. Adelaide, it kind of felt like they started strong enough and then faded a lot in the second half. I think the substitutions didn't really work in Adelaide's favour either, which has kind of been the opposite story for most of the season, where the subs have come on and had a good impact. They didn't really get going in this game, and MacArthur were able to hold on for a draw, but neither team did anywhere near enough to try and claim a win, right, and say, we were robbed, or we deserved more. And a draw is a very fair result, and for both teams, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, right? It's kind of a direct rival in that top 4, top 5 kind of space, where maybe you're going to be a chance to to finish in the top 4 at the end of the season and get that home final. So, it's not the worst result in the world, but it's just a little bit disappointing because it feels like it could have been a really great game, 2 really strong teams, had it not been 37 degrees. And, the league had delayed the game by half an hour. It made very little difference to anything. The sun was still beating down. It was still warm. I don't think the sun would set for another hour or so after that. So it's just, I think that, we talk about it all the time, but I think that serious consideration needs to be given to just completely reschedule these games. I mean, the women's game earlier on, it was supposed to be a doubleheader. That was then moved to Saturday, where it was 31 degrees, lovely day. It was good weather. It was fantastic. But the men's game was just pushed back half an hour. And, I know there's a lot of reluctance about, having games going on at the same time and things for, the broadcasts and stuff like that. But I think in these kind of exceptional circumstances where you've got 37-degree heat at 8:30, you're kind of like, maybe let's just not do it. let's play it tomorrow, when it's going to be a lot cooler and we're going to get a better game of football. Both teams are going to, it's going to be easier recovery for them. Like, it's just, I don't know. It just seems foolish to keep going on and doing the same thing every season, and everyone makes the same comments that it's not good enough, that the football isn't good. The fans don't like sitting out in the stands in that kind of heat either. So it's just, I feel like there needs to be a rethink of the policy here, to be honest.
I'm really starting to warm to the idea of a summer break as well. Like, we brought it up a couple of weeks ago on the show. The more I think about it, the more I feel like it makes sense, because if you can move your season earlier to start in that August, September place. One thing that's going to happen with the international calendar from this year onwards is that kind of first international break of the season is actually going to be 2 full weeks. So national teams are going to play 4 times in that period. So you can almost you lose a little bit more time there. You probably still want to play through Christmas because you want to play your Boxing Day games. You want to play your New Year's Eve game, and maybe you finish that weekend of New Year's Eve or whenever that is, and then you maybe take the rest of January off. So you kind of avoid the Big Bash finals, you avoid the Australian Open, and then maybe the first or second week of February is when you come back. Depending on how many games you play as well, that gives you, most of the runway to get to that kind of May finish when you're including A-League finals as well. It kind of makes the season around the right length. It means you miss 5 or 6 weeks of the hottest period in Australia, which we know is considerably extreme. And it's not going to remove all the possibilities of heat-affected games, of course, but you're taking out those big chances. You get a little reset points for fans before you jump into the back end of the season as well. I don't know. Obviously, there's detractors to it as well. We don't have football for 5 weeks, but it feels like there is an argument there for it.
Yeah, and I think it needs to go one way or the other, right? They either need to find a way to avoid these kinds of situations entirely where, it's hot and that's, you have a summer break. So you're trying deliberately to avoid the hottest part of the year, or you have something in place so that when these things arise, you're able to, kind of move the game around. And I mean, it does happen in very extreme circumstances. I mean, we saw the Sydney FC game earlier this season get postponed and then ultimately pushed back completely. I can't remember who that was against now, but that was because of the pitch conditions at Leichhardt.
That was Auckland.
Was that the Auckland one? Yeah. So, it does happen, but I think that when it comes to heat, it's still just, we'll just push it back a little bit and it'll be fine. And it kind of isn't fine. So I think that, they really need to go one way or the other. They need to go, we're going to allow ourselves to reschedule these games if it's too hot, or they go, let's have a summer break and let's avoid the time when these games are the hottest and when we're having the most problems with them. I don't know. I feel like something needs to be done because it feels like there's a few times every season where we talk about it and it just, I don't know, people don't enjoy it. And I think, if you're not enjoying it, what's the point?
Do we need to have any more tolerance for starting games later? Like, if you go back to even in summer, it would have to be close to 9 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
To really guarantee cool temps by kickoff. Is that a possibility, do you think? Do we even have enough fans that are willing to come to grounds in the first place to risk losing too many of them for a late kickoff?
And that's the thinking of just, push it a day or reschedule it, right? In that you can then just get a good crowd and you're not kind of annoying people. I mean, I will say it was good because they'd announced, I think, a day or two in advance that this game was going to be postponed by 30 minutes. In the past, it's been on the day of the game, and well, people already have their plans in place, right? So now what, they've got to wait around for half an hour, in the heat. Like, it's not a good
you're
solution.
already on the train. It's like, the game's back in an hour. It's like, well, I'm coming already.
Yeah, so that was well managed, but I think just only 30 minutes is the bit that kind of kills it, where it's like, well, what's the point? There's really no benefit to this for anybody. So yeah, I don't hate the idea of a late kickoff, but like you said, are people going to rock up? I mean, a Friday night, yeah, probably more likely than some others, but it just, yeah, I think honestly the preferable thing is to reschedule completely. Find a time when it's just not going to be that oppressively hot. I think that's the way to describe it. It was like overbearing, and it has been hot here for a few weeks now. Temperatures are over 40 degrees for 3-4 days in a row, and it gets to a point where it's just like, it just weighs down on everybody, and it's like, yeah, you feel it. And I think this was an instance here where we knew the weekend was going to be cooler than the Friday night. Everybody knew it was going to drop by 10-15 degrees overnight. It just makes so much sense in my mind to just go, right, we're just going to move it to the weekend. But I don't know. I don't know, obviously, all the logistics behind it, the travel plans for teams and things like that, and, what it means, like I said, for the broadcast. But I think something has to be done, because if we just keep having this conversation every season, it's going nowhere. It's going to suck the life out of some of these games, and it did with this one.
Yeah, it did. All right, I think that'll do, Jacob, for the Round Ball Australia podcast for today. It's one of those rare episodes where we haven't got a lot of kind of non-football news, like on the pitch football I'm talking, to deal with, which is nice. It's nice to just sit back and talk about the football from once in a little while. But it is a big week coming up. You're going to get 3 podcasts this week. So your usual kind of round preview news episode on Friday, and in between on Wednesday, Paletti had a sit down with Nick Stoll, who, if you don't know, is the man behind all of the great A-League shows that have popped up over the last 18 months or so. So the A-League's Download, the Dub Zone, obviously has existed in its past, but in its current form, and my personal favourite, Total A-Leagues as well, with Vince Rugari and Tommy Orr and Daniel McBreen this year as well. So he's a very, very passionate football person, has had football gigs all over the world, but continually is just drawn back by the magic of the A-League. So that episode will be out on Wednesday. If you're a YouTube channel member, you can see that first on Tuesday as well, a little bit early for our very valued YouTube members. But Jacob Stevens, thank you very much for your time today.
No worries. It's good to have you back as host, so I don't have to do all the thinking. I can just talk. But no,
absolutely,
it's been great.
I just set you free, and you can say what you want, and I'll deal with everything else. Thank you all very much for listening at home. I'm going to leave you with a couple of minutes from that interview with Paletti and Nick Stoll to take us out. But until then, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
A word that just kept coming up there throughout that answer is fun. And so I'd be remiss not to ask you, what has made Australian football fun for you this season?
Yeah, honestly, the Jets. I think every week there's been something. And actually, I think there's been a lot of complaints over the years about maybe there's because there's not so much money in the league as there previously was. Some of the top players leave and stuff. But I love all these young players coming through. Like I said, Eli Adams at the Jets, Clayton Taylor at the Jets. We just had Burkett score a hat-trick for Adelaide. That doesn't happen if there's a, Sergio Van Dijk level striker just ahead of him. And as good as Sergio Van Dijk was, and I really liked watching him play as well, I love the young players coming through. So that's been super fun. I think the coaches have been super fun, whether it's been Adam Griffiths or Michael Valkanis, or just insane answers in the press conference, Stadge before he got sacked. Juan Mata, I think, is a very fun player to watch. Just every time he's playing, I very much enjoy just the class he brings to games. I love how close this season is, 10 points separating 11 teams. I love how people are freaking out. I love the flip-flopping. For example, Sydney FC this week. Sydney FC could end this round and they could be top of the table and everyone would be like, we won the derby, we're the best, Sydney FC, Sydney boys are number one. They could be also out of the 6 and it's going to be Uffy out, what's he doing, this club's a joke. And I come from sort of Southern European extremes of football. To me, it is if you win, you're the best thing in the history of football. If you lose, this is a disaster. Get rid of the coach, get rid of the CEO, get rid of everyone. I love that about football, and I think I enjoy when fans are like that.
I mean, that's how we know we've made it as a football country, when the discussions just flip and flop on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, the other day, like I think it was after the original rivalry game, and everyone was debating whether it was offside or onside, or whether he was really affecting the play for Melbourne Victory's late equaliser that got ruled. Sorry, late winner would have been the winner, got ruled out, and then Adelaide went up the other end and won the game. But, and people are like, maybe, we shouldn't be talking about like a ref's decision for 3 days. He's like, no, this is what football countries do. They analyse and analyse. This would, if we were in a proper football country, this would have been like 24 hours straight of radio. Every referee in the country would have been called up. They would have gone through all historical records of this rule being applied. Is it fair? Is it not? How many goals have Melbourne Victory been ruled out? How many goals have Adelaide been ruled out? It would be insane. But again, I love that. It's fun, and that's where I think we should be heading. So, I think as much as the sort of the football community can lose its mind over minutia, good. I think that's a good thing. It shows a healthy level of sort of obsession with the league, and that's sort of what I want to see in an even greater scale.